Let me start with a little bit about you and then move into larger issues. Would you describe your day job at Tech 2 Consulting and how your work and life skills have already contributed to what you do on the school board?
My company Tech 2 is we kind of call it a consulting and management firm. And our explanation of what that means is we're like an IT department for hire. So we come in and work with small, medium businesses, sometimes even larger businesses that just want a little bit more advice or maybe a second opinion. But we work with these companies from everything to budgeting, long-term planning, but then we take it all the way down to maintaining systems on a monthly basis. And a lot of web development is somewhere in between. So we do the whole spectrum, and that's why we feel that we are that IT department for hire. We fill that whole IT department void for a business that doesn't necessarily need a full-time, possibly even a part-time commitment from an IT person as a staff member. They can contract with us, and we fill those voids. As far as how I feel it's contributed, it's obviously I have an expertise in IT. Which I think as I came on, the district recognized and the new administration recognizes that we've made some not necessarily bad investments, but we've definitely not been focusing on all the right things when it comes to IT. We've focused a lot in specifically. There's been a big focus in tangible technology, things that I can put my hands on and I can see. There's a smart board in every classroom, and I stand by smart boards are great and have a great educational opportunity, or there's an opportunity there that's for educators. But if it's not something that will benefit that particular class's curriculum, it's not a good investment. If a smart board is being used as little more than a chalkboard, then all it is a very expensive chalkboard with a very high cost of maintenance. And we're investing in those things in places where we don't necessarily need them when our infrastructure is in pretty sorry shape. Ask any educator that's taken a class into one of the computer labs. They'll tell you that there's been anywhere from 3 to 7 students that the entire hour they were, or block schedule, whatever, they were in that lab, they were unable to log on. And when we ignore our infrastructure when investing in these tangible things that may not necessarily be the right investment in those locations, in all locations, we're doing a disservice to our students. So I feel that that's something that they've been the district's has recognized and is moving towards correcting, but it's a long process. But I do feel that is one of the few expertise that I bring to the table that I think it will help the district long term.
Okay, really big question for you. What is your educational philosophy? How would you describe it?
Educational philosophy. I'm sure I wrote a paper describing my educational philosophy when I was a student here at Mizzou. If I could remember it, I should have just brought it and tried to recite it. Realized all the things that probably I'd completely rewrite after having been in the classroom and now seeing it from an administrative perspective. My educational philosophy is that every student is different, and we need to make sure that we provide. And this is, of course, from a board perspective. Every student is different, and we need to make sure that we're providing an equitable educational opportunity, an equitable educational opportunity for every student to succeed. We need to make sure that we have those opportunities and that we recognize that, it may cost a little more over here than it does over here to get the job done. But that's what it is. That's what it takes to make that educational opportunity equitable.
speaking of equitable, you're segueing into a couple of questions that we have. One thing that comes to mind immediately is the achievement gap, or the tendency for kids from lower socioeconomic levels and different ethnicities to not do as well as others. And the gap in their achievement is called the achievement gap. And it's something that Columbia Schools and the community is addressing in a series of discussions. What do you think we should be doing about the achievement gap?
This is a tough question that more often than not I recognize is often addressed in platitudes. And it's because it's such a complicated issue. And it's easy to lose sight of how big a picture it is. I think there are some individuals that might think that there's a silver bullet for this, and there's not. This is a systemic problem that needs to be addressed at a societal level. The public schools are a part of that. But again, that achievement gap, and I've mentioned this in several interviews and in several forums, the achievement gap is existing before they get to the Columbia Public Schools. That gap's there. When a kindergartner walks in on day one, 2 kindergartners walk in on day one. One is reading at a first, maybe even second grade level, and the other student doesn't necessarily know the letters in the alphabet, much less the letters in their own name. They may be able to recite numbers. They don't know what counting truly is, which there's a big difference most people don't realize. That gap's there on day one, and then we're suddenly struggling to close that gap. I think one massive part of solving this problem, especially when it comes to the fact that most of this gap exists at the socioeconomic level, is with early childhood education and making sure that there are opportunities, affordable, possibly free educational opportunities for students, for children from birth. That's something that needs to exist. I think that's something that we need, that the community needs to realize, that this gap does exist before students get to the Columbia Public Schools, and that one big step to solving it is providing quality educational opportunities for students from birth to 5 years old. That's one of the few things that's going to start closing this gap. In the public schools, there are a lot of things I think we recognize that we need to start doing. I think intervention is a big part of this, making sure that we're catching students that are struggling and pulling them out, bringing them up, and putting them right back in to those classrooms, so that we're not, so that the students that are there succeeding are able to help bring those students that are struggling up along with them. In addition to that, I feel that the opportunity in small autonomous schools that are given a little bit of, just given autonomy from the rest of the district. They would have scheduling and staffing, autonomy. They'd have, to some extent, maybe in the future, I think not immediately, but be given autonomy in governance. They'd be able to move a little bit more. It'd be more like that kayak in the river rather than the large barge that is the Columbia Public Schools. They'd be better able to address the situations of individual students and the situations specifically, or that they're dealing with, the specific situations to their buildings. I think that provides, and that's something that we've been discussing quite a bit over the past year. But one of the big things that I love about this proposal is it addresses the mobility issue that our students of low socioeconomic status, our free and reduced lunch population is another way to describe them. It addresses the mobility that population faces.